Welcome to the next lecture. So in this lecture we'll talk about amines. So in this lecture we'll discuss the introduction of amines, the nomenclature, properties, how to prepare them. There are the two methods of preparation, one by substitution methods and reductive amination methods. And we'll talk about synthesis strategies. We'll end it with acylation of amines, Hofmann elimination, and how do amines react with nitrous acid, and reaction of amines with reaction of aryl diazonium ions, and finally nitrogen heterocycles. Now, amines are derivatives of ammonia. So whenever you see the term derivatives, basically think that these are replacing the hydrogen with any alkyl group. So if you replace the hydrogen with an alkyl group, we can call that an amine. So amines, they can be designated as primary, secondary, or tertiary amines. Ammonia is the base compound that it starts with, which has NH3. If you replace one of the hydrogens with an alkyl group, and that group, we call that a primary amine. If there are two alkyl groups, so then we call that secondary amine. And if there are three alkyl groups, we can call that tertiary amine. So there are naturally occurring amines. We generally call them alkaloids. So first and foremost is morphine, the second is cocaine, and the third is nicotine. So morphine is an analgesic that is commonly used to relieve pain. Most commonly it's used in surgeries. Cocaine is already, you know it, it's a classified illegal drug, and nicotine is the common addictive compound found in tobacco. Next, there are some other ones that are commonly used in neurochemistry. These are neurochemicals that are linked to the behaviors, and these are what we call the ones that change your body's behavior or your neurochemistry. So one of them is adrenaline. So this is your fight or flight hormone. You have noradrenaline. This is the one that regulates the heart rate and dilates the air passages. The other one is dopamine. Dopamine is the one that's responsible for regulating the motor skills and the emotions. So for example, let's say if you run, if you have intense joy is generally caused by dopamine. So that whenever you have intense joy, this is the chemical that is released, and that gives you that amount of emotional pain. Next, let's talk about amines. So amines have a trigonal pyramidal nitrogen atom of an amine carries a partial negative charge on its lone pair. Notice that the amine here has a lone pair of electrons. That lone pair of electrons yields it to behave as a nucleophile. So where the nitrogen becomes the high density region, electron dense region, and everywhere else becomes a electron deficient region. So whenever you have, if it functions as a base, the electron pair attacks and undergoes protonation. So it takes in protons, and it acting as a nucleophile, it can do the same thing, and rather than taking in proton, it can take a functional group from an alkyl halide, and attach it to itself to form ammonium ions. So these are the common features of amines. Now let's look at the nomenclature of amines. So IUPAC nomenclature allows two different ways of naming primary amines. So one of them is to name based on the alkyl group -yl followed by the suffix amine. For example, this is two carbons, so ethyl and ethylamine. This is isopropylamine. You have cyclohexane, cyclohexylamine. So this is one naming structure. Now, when you have more complicated primary amines, we can name them as alkanamines. So they are generally named same as alcohols. So but we replace the suffix amine instead of using OL when you have an alcohol. So for example, notice that the amine group is on the second carbon here. So we can write it as heptanamine. So we don't need to write it as heptylamine, but we can write it as heptanamine, similar to that of heptanol. So in place of ol, we'll basically write, when you have NH2, we'll write amine directly, removing the E. Now the other term that is used when you want to use it as a substituent, when you have carbonyl structures, and if you want to give priority to those carbonyl structures, then we can use the prefix amino for the group when you look at it as a substituent. For example, here this is, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, so 4 carbons, it's butanol, and on the 4th carbon there is amine group, so we can write 4-amino butanol. Here we have benzene structure, and both the structures on the opposite sides on the para position. So amine is on the para position, we can write para-amine benzoic acid. So this is one way of naming substituents. Now if the amine is directly attached to an aromatic ring, we use the parent name to check the amine. So for example, benzene and attached to an NH2 is called aniline. So whenever we use NH2 already combined, we use it to be a parent structure. So this structure is aniline and it's in the meta position, so we can write metachloroaniline. Here again you have aniline, you have fluoro on one side you have ethyl. So fluoro gets the priority, so you get 1, 2, 3, 4 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can write 5-ethyl 2-fluoroaniline. So this is the idea of naming when you have structures. Now there are a number of ways for naming secondary and tertiary amines. So one of the common names is to name the alkyl groups followed by the amine suffix, and then we use the di or tri if there are more than one of the same group. For example, here we have ethyl group, a propyl group and a methyl group. So we name it in the alphabetical order: ethyl, methyl, propyl, amine. Or if you have similar groups, for example on both sides you have ethyl here, so we can write it as diethylamine. And we have all methyl groups on all of them, so we can write trimethylamine. So these are the common ways of knowing these things. Next, the methods of changing the structure when you have attached it to something else. How do you name it when you have it as a substituent? So first thing is to find the parent chain, and then we use the suffix amine. Next, smaller groups attached to the amine should be named as the alkyl groups with a N locant, which means that notice that whenever we write N-methyl, we are basically saying that the methyl group, it is attached to the nitrogen. Again, we are writing N-ethyl, which says that the nitrogen group is attached to the, ethyl group is attached to the nitrogen. And we name the parent chain as it is. So the parent chain is S 2,2 dichloro, and we write on the groups that are attached alphabetically N-ethyl, N-methyl, 3-hexamine. So this is how you can name the compounds. Now, what are some properties of amines? So the nitrogen atom here is a typical sp3 hybridized atom. Notice that the angle is a little bit off. It's not 109.5 because there is a lone pair on the top. So that lone pair reduces the angle to 108 degrees. So the carbon-nitrogen bond lengths are 147 picometer, which is slightly shorter than the carbon-carbon bonds and slightly longer than the carbon-oxygen bonds. Now, under what circumstances would nitrogen be sp2 hybridized? So the conditions under which it can undergo sp2 hybridization is when there is a loss of a functional group on the structure, creating a negative nucleophilic structure. Now the nitrogen atoms here with 3 different alkyl groups are generally chiral, so which means they possess 4 different groups, and the lone pair also counts as a group. So amines in general are not optically active. So these are substances that are not optically active. That's the reason why you have pyramidal conversion generally occurring rapidly, and it can form 2 sides on the 2 different structures on each side while creating the transition structure on the main side. Now amines, whenever you with fewer than 5 carbons, are generally soluble in water. The reason mainly is because of hydrogen bonds. Now primary and secondary amines can intermolecularly hydrogen bond and have higher boiling points than tertiary amines. So the higher the lesser the number of alkyl groups on the nitrogen, the more soluble it is in water because it can create intermolecular hydrogen bond. Now if the amine group does not contain hydrogen, that makes it hard for it to have a hydrogen bond. For example, when you take propane here, its boiling point is -42, but propane, in place of 1 CH3, if you attach an NH2 group, the boiling point increases to 17 degrees. But it's not the same level to that of alcohol. Alcohol is much more strong, so that's why it creates a much more stronger structure. So propylamine, again, becomes 50 degrees. Ethyl methylamine, 34 degrees. Trimethylamine is 33 degrees. So remember that depending on the structure, we can see the differences here. Now, many small molar mass amines generally have unpleasant odors. The most common smell is similar to that of a rotting fish. So one of them is putrescine and cadaverine. So these are substances that smell like rotted meat, rotten meat, or rotted fish. So these are some of those substances that can smell that way. Now, let's talk about the basicity of the amines. Now, amines are generally stronger bases than alcohols and ethers. The reason mainly is the presence of the lone pair of electrons on it and the accessibility of that lone pair. Now, amines can be readily protonated by either a strong or a weak acid. So when you take an amine, it can be strongly protonated easily in the presence of an acid, a strong or a weak acid, and you can create ammonium ions. So ammonium is a positively charged ion of nitrogen. So it is generally useful to have a general idea of these pKa values for protonated amines. So remember that here the pKa value changes rapidly. That's why the equilibrium favors the one which has higher pKa. So these are some pKa values of different substances with different functional groups. Next. So we discussed that amines in general with have more than 5 carbons are generally only slightly soluble in water. So solubility can be enhanced in the presence of an aqueous acid, most commonly a protonated ammonium ion acting as cations, and so therefore make it water soluble. Now amines can be extracted from organic impurities. So the most common method is to use an aqueous acid and converting them to the corresponding ammonium ions and finally undergoing reduction. Now the pKa is of the most alkyl amine conjugate acid is generally between 10 to 11, and these are generally aryl amines are generally less basic than alkyl amines. The reason mainly is because the lone pair is much more delocalized when you have an aryl amine. In an aryl amine, the lone pair always moves towards in the resonance structures, creating much more instability. Now, so the presence of an electron withdrawing group also decreases the acidity of amines. So when you have, for example, say methoxide, that can increase the acidity, as well as when you have NCCN here, which is a cyano group. Cyano group creates a little more acidic compound, which can increase the acidity rapidly. Now, the lone pair of an amide is not considered to be basic or nucleophilic, so it is extensively delocalized into the carbonyl group. So the lone pair here of an amide, remember that it's not an amine, it's of an amide, is not considered basic or nucleophilic. The reason mainly is because it can undergo extensive delocalization, which is not favorable for nucleophilicity. So at physiological pH, amines generally exist as primarily as ammonium ions. Now when you take an amine and add it to a hydrogen atom, that creates the ammonium ion that predominates the physiological pH. So recall the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, so which is generally used to calculate the ratio of amine to ammonium concentration. So that is one way of judging how pH depends on the physiological pH depends on the ammonium formation. So next, let's talk about preparation of amines. So these are methods that we have already seen before in other lectures. So we'll just review them. So the first method is to prepare an amine from an alkyl halide. So the method involves first cyanation, so formation of a sodium cyanide using SN2 reaction, and that sodium cyanide under reduction reaction creates an amine group formation. So this is the first way we generally can create an amine. The only problem here is that it can add a carbon skeleton and it can extend the carbon skeleton by 1 carbon. So by not only adding the nitrogen NH2 group, it also adds a carbon group. Now the next method we saw in carboxylic acids is to use the preparation of an amine from carboxylic acid, where we use the carboxylic acid, first we chlorinate it, and then adding excess amination, we can create an amide. Under reduction of the amide, it can create an amine. So first remember that we have a carboxylic acid. So if we create an amide, and reduction of an amide creates amine. So this is how we can see the difference here. So the only difference here is that there is no change in the carbon skeleton. So we are not adding any extra carbons. So the number of carbons that you start with is the number of carbons that you end up with. So if you want to end up changing the carbon skeleton as well as adding the amine group, so then choose the method of creation by using starting from an alkyl halide. If you do not want to alter the carbon skeleton, we generally use the amination of a carboxylic acid. Now the next method is to prepare aniline from benzene. So the most common method is to first undergo nitration of benzene and follow it by the reduction, which provides aniline and its derivatives, right? So first we use concentrated nitric acid, and in presence of sulfuric acid, first we create the nitrobenzene, and a reduction in presence of hydrogen and platinum, or by using any metal and a base, we can create the aniline formation. So amines in general are really good nucleophiles, and one of the best methods to create them is to create, and they can readily undergo SN2 substitution with an alkyl halide. So an ammonia in presence of a alkyl halide undergoes substitution reaction where the amine group adds the CH3 or the alkyl group attached to the alkyl halide and attaches itself to the group and undergoes again gets attacked by another ammonia atom that undergoes deprotonation, finally creates a primary amine. So this is the most common method, or the primary method, or the efficient method to create a quaternary ammonium salt. So this is the common method that's used to create an ammonium salt. Now there is what we call monoalkylation, is something that's really difficult because nitrogen becomes a better nucleophile as it starts to pick up more and more alkyl groups. So the number of alkyl group it picks up, the higher the chances of it undergoing polyalkylation. So it's not easy to create a primary amine, rather it undergoes polyalkylation and creates a quaternary ammonium salt. So the next method is by azide synthesis. Azide synthesis is conversion of an alkyl halide to an azide, so followed by reduction to yield a primary amine. So what is azide here? Azide is basically adding sodium azide or sodium NaN3. So when you add it to an alkyl halide, it creates an azide compound. The azide compound under reduction creates the structure, the monoalkylated ammonia. So here the compound that is released is a nitrogen. So a nitrogen is released and hydrogen gets added to one of the nitrogens. Now, next one is Gabriel synthesis. Gabriel synthesis involves the synthesis of primary or secondary amines from phthalimide. So phthalimide is converted to an anion in presence of KOH. So when you have KOH, phthalimide creates a potassium phthalimide. The potassium phthalimide then undergoes SN2 reaction in presence of an alkyl halide and finally creates the alkylated structure. Now, the alkylated structure in presence of an acid creates disubstituted carboxylic acid, and in the presence of N2H4 or hydrazine, it creates the diaminated structure. So when you have acid, it creates an ammonium ion. When you have N2H4 hydrazine, it creates primary amine. So this is the one step that can be used to liberate primary amines. Next one is reductive amination. So reductive amination is the process where we use a ketone or an aldehyde first to convert it into an imine and then reduce it to corresponding amine. So we use a ketone first, and our addition of excess NH3 in the presence of an acid, it undergoes an amination. Amination reaction is where it loses the oxygen and adds a double bonded NH group, and this double bonded NH group under reduction finally creates an amine formation. Now, if a reducing agent is present, the amine can be reduced to in situ to form an amine. Reductive amination can also be accomplished with a variety of reducing agents. So This is not the only reducing agent that is used. Next one is the other one that you can use is sodium borohydride, cyanoborohydride. So which is a common one that can be used here. So NaBH3Cn. So it does not react with ketones or aldehydes, but it is used to create the imine formation and then yield the described amine in one reaction synthesis. So these are the reductive amination ones that you can do. So you start with a ketone, and the presence of sodium cyanoborohydride, you can create a primary amine. If you start with a primary amine, you can create a secondary amine. If you start with a secondary amine, you can create a tertiary amine. So the amine that you use results in the amine that comes out. So overall we have three options. One is potassium thalamide, sodium azide, and ammonia in presence of sodium cyanoborohydride. Now primary amines can be used to obtain secondary or tertiary amines. So this is a common synthesis, the same synthesis as before. So the reductive amination, so under further reductive amination, it undergoes the formation and finally creates the quaternary ammonium salt. Now let's discuss the acylation of amides. Acylation here involves the addition of a double bonded group at the end of the structure or an acyl group at the end of the structure. This involves the removal of chlorine here and this structure attaching itself to the double bonded to the bonded nitrogen, resulting in the formation of an acyl group. So this process is what we call the acylation reaction of amines. So for this reaction we need 2 moles of amine, and the acylation of an amine can be used as a protecting group, and it can help in stopping further alkylation of substances. Next one is how do you perform monobromination of aniline? Remember that bromine undergoes polybromination or tribromination. Now if aniline is directly brominated, you can see polybromination. Now the amino group here is too powerful for an activating group. So what you can do now, by adding an acyl group, we are blocking off the entire structure, resulting in the para compound formation in the maximum amount. So the other one is aromatic amines. Aromatic amines cannot also undergo the Friedel cap directly. So what we need to do is we need to react with the Lewis acid catalyst, which is AlCl3. Under reaction with that, you can deactivate the ring. The deactivated ring then undergoes reaction by Friedel cat alkylation reaction. So like alcohols, amines can also serve as precursor for synthesis of alkenes. So when you start with an alcohol, under elimination we can create an alkene. The same thing with an amine as well. Amine behaves the same way as an alcohol. Under elimination of the alkyl group, the amino group, you can create an alkene structure. So the process is what generally referred to as Hofmann elimination. So when we use excess methyl iodide, we can convert an amine to a tertiary ammonium salt, which generally creates a good leaving group. That tertiary ammonium salt, once it creates a good leaving group, results in the leaving of the group as well as one of the hydrogens attached to the adjacent carbon, resulting in the formation of a double bonded structure, which is the common method. We can call that the E2 elimination. Here, with the strong base that we use can cause the E2 elimination to occur. So to enhance this reaction, we use sodium silver oxide, so to enhance the reactions process. So the elimination is still the same E2 elimination, where the OH group attacks the proton donates its electrons back to the carbon, and the carbon, fulfilled with all of the electrons, it creates the leaving group and it leaves, creating the alkene with trisubstituted amine and finally water. So Hofmann eliminations always give a terminal alkene. So remember this part, because it always creates the less substituted alkene in terms of its regioselectivity. That's the reaction. That's the reason why we can call it the Hofmann elimination reaction. Next, let's talk about the reactions of amines with nitrous acid. So nitrous acid is unstable and it has to be regenerated in situ to react it with an amine. So the nitrous acid, remember that nitric acid and nitrous acid are different. Nitrous acid is HNO2, which is an unstable form of the acid, and this nitrous acid under reaction with we can create loses water to form an active electrophile, and it creates what we call a nitrosonium ion. Nitrosonium ion is NO2 minus, and that nitrosonium ion is what involves the NO minus or NO plus depending on the structure, which can create the final formation. So the most common method is to use sodium nitrite. Under proton transfer, it can create nitrous acid. The nitrous acid under proton transfer results in the formation of substituted nitric acid, a disubstituted protonated nitrous acid, and then after the leaving of the leaving group, it can create the nitrosonium ion. Nitrosonium ion here is a really good electrophile. So it's a really good electrophile, and that because of that nitrosonium ion being extremely electrophilic, so it can immediately react with an amine as soon as it forms. So this is one of the reasons why we use nitrosome. So the common method is when you have a secondary amine, it replaces the hydrogen and adds the nitrosonium ion, causing it to form N-nitrosamine. So the mechanism involves the nucleophilic attack and a proton transfer. We don't need to discuss the mechanism itself, just remember the reaction. Now, nitrosamines are generally potential carcinogens. The most common ones are N-nitroso dimethylamine, which is present in many food products including cured meat, fish and beer. The next one is N-nitroso pyridolene, which is found in fried bacon. The next one is nitroso nornicotine, which is found in tobacco smoke and which is one of the most potential carcinogens that is responsible for lung cancer. Now, the reaction with a primary amine generally yields a diazonium salt. So, whenever you have a primary amine reacting with sodium nitride in presence of HCl, we can create a diazonium salt. This process is called as diazotization, and this process here also involves the formation of a diazonium salt. These salts are generally extremely unstable, and they always try to decompose to form a variety of products, provided if they don't explode first. The aryl diazonium salts are generally a bit more stable, and they can be synthetically versatile, which we will cover in the next section. So the amine, first we can create the diazonium salt. The diazonium salt under the reactions can create aryl halides. So the most common method of using aryl diazonium ions is by what we call Sandmeyer reactions. Sandmeyer reactions uses copper as we uses copper salts to attach side groups onto the aryl structure. So the reaction of an aryl diazonium ion with a copper salt to install a halogen or a cyano group on the ring is what we call Sandmeyer reactions. So for example, if you use copper bromide, it attaches bromine. If you have copper chloride, it attaches chloride. Copper iodide, iodine. Copper cyanide, cyanide. Cyano group. So overall, the Sandmeyer reaction is a part of a multi-step synthesis to install a COOH on a benzene ring, so which can further enhance the reaction to finally create the COOH group as well. Now, aryl diazonium salts are generally used as precursors for installing fluorine or hydroxy groups on benzene rings. So when you have HBF4, we can end up using that to replace the diazonium group with fluorine. The same thing in presence of hydration can cause the creation of phenol. So these are some of the common reactions. Now the diazonium ion in presence of phosphorus acid creates a benzene. It undergoes alkylation basically, arylation basically. And this is a useful one which can be used when you have an amino group and we need it to be activated to the ring temporarily to take the advantage of its directing effects. Next method is what we call azocoupling. Azocoupling is the process where we try to attach two or more diazonium rings and create a combined compound. So for example, when you have this structure here, a phenol and a diazonium salt, they both combine to finally create the bridge structure, and the bridge that it creates between them is called as the azocoupling. So this is what we name called as azocoupling. The reaction is an electrophilic aromatic substitution and it undergoes very commonly. This azocoupling is the most common method used to produce azo dyes. Azo dyes, these are azo compounds that are highly conjugated and they have brilliant color. So some of the most specific dye colors can be made by using azo coupling or azo distructure, azo coupling compounds, and these are the ones that are commonly used to create multiple compounds. So the next one is nitrogen heterocycles. Heterocycles are basically cyclic compounds that contains atoms of more than one element. For example, if you have a cycle that contains all carbons, we can call them homocycles or cyclic compounds. When you have heterocycles is where in place of carbon you have another group, we call that a heterocycle. Now nitrogen heterocycles are where we have nitrogen in place of carbon. So some of the common compounds are esomeprazole, which is the common name is Nexium. It is the proton pump inhibitor used in the treatment of ulcers and acid flux reduction. The other one is sildenafil, which is the common method used to treat erectile dysfunction, which is commonly known by its street name Viagra. And this is also useful in controlling the pulmonary arterial hypertension or PAH syndrome. So the other one is erectile dysfunction, ED syndrome. Next one is pyrrole. So pyrrole is the one that is a simple aromatic heterocycle, and they undergo electrophilic aromatic substitution, and they can create the common structures that you generally do, but the difference here is that they are faster than benzene. Now the substitution generally occurs at the second carbon, giving it the most stable intermediate compound. So the other compound is imidazole. Imidazole is a compound, is an aromatic heterocycle, most commonly found in histamines. So to counteract them, we generally take antihistamines. So these are common compounds that you generally see in your daily use for cough or cold. The next one is pyridine. So pyridine is a 6-membered heterocycle. So it generally has a lone pair on the nitrogen that is not delocalized, and the pyridine is generally a weak base. So pyrrole is mostly really very acidic. Pyridine is not so acidic but still has a significant acidity. Cyclohexylamine is not acidic at all. Now pyrimidine is the one that is similar to pyridine, and it is the one that is the common moiety to biological compounds, most commonly to the DNA base pairs. So pyrimidine is the one that is similar to pyridine. This pyrimidine is the one that is used in that is found in DNA, deoxyribonucleic acids in your cells. It's also found in RNA. Base pairs A, G, C, T are generally the ones that contain pyrimidines or pyridines. So these pyrimidines and pyridines can undergo electrophilic aromatic substitution, but they always have usually low yields. So with this, we end our lecture on amines. So I'll see you again in the next lecture.